Yeah, Pepper. Right now, we're actually on I-55. The protesters have actually stopped traffic coming from any and all directions. They're making their way up I-55 near that Channel 3 drive. They're stopping vehicles of any kind from going anywhere, calling for justice for Tyre Nichols. Now, we know that that video did just come out a few minutes ago, and a lot of people have seen parts of that video, even though it has been made for mature content only. There are people here of all backgrounds supporting Tyre Nichols. If you can see, we're still making our way up I-55 towards this Crump Boulevard exit. And if you could show them down here, traffic is all the way backed up that road. People are in the streets making sure that no one gets by and that everyone hears Tyre Nichols' name. Reporting live from I-55, I'm Zaria Oates.
All right, Zaria, first of all, please be careful, because that's dangerous anytime, but certainly walking around I-55, that, as she's telling us and showing us, has been shut down as a result of this demonstration and protesters. I wonder if you can give us a feel, Zaria, for, even though they haven't seen the video, obviously, what is their main message in their support of Tyre Nichols?
You know, their main message is that they want this to end and that they don't want people to have to die or people to be at the hands of police brutality anymore. A lot of them are just asking for reform when it comes to the Memphis Police Department. They have, as you can see, stopped a semi-truck on this highway. There's many, many protesters out here. It started with about 100. Now we're seeing maybe 300 people coming from off the sides of the highway down these hills up over here. But a lot of them really just calling for justice for Tyre. Now, as we wait and see what happens with this protest, we want to remind you that the family did say if you are protesting for Tyre Nichols, protesting on behalf of the family, that you will remain peaceful in all of your protests. Richard, Pepper.
It's a difficult situation here, and as we know from past times when I-40 has been shut down due to demonstrations, the officials have to be very careful, and often the Tennessee Patrol will step in because you can protest, you can demonstrate, you can express your opinion, but you can't shut down traffic. Granted, that might not seem as a violent action, but it is something that could impede people's safety, and that's where authorities start to get concerned. What kind of presence, Zaria, are you seeing from authorities, from police out there? What kind of interaction is there with the demonstrators?
Yeah, we're actually not seeing many authorities out here. I personally haven't seen any Memphis Police Department out here, but they are calling for Chief Sarah Lynn Davis to come out here and make some noise so that they can give their demands directly to Chief Davis. But again, I haven't seen any kind of authority figure out here on these streets during these protests. Now, they've made their way up to this median. As you can see, some people getting up high, both photographers from out of town as well as some protesters are making their way up there. It's actually getting pretty quiet now. We're going to listen to some of their demands. They're going in to chant again. If you can hear them, they're saying justice for Tyre Nichols again in front of this semi-truck. And the guy driving the semi-truck looks like, you know, I just want to get home, but he really can't because they've completely shut this area of Highway 55 down near Crump Boulevard exit. Richard, Pepper.
Well, it's probably some of these protesters have done this before, I would imagine. And of course, there have been past instances where they've called for the Memphis police chief to show up, and that has happened, actually walking arm in arm with the demonstrators, and it was able to get them off the bridge. And maybe they're wanting something like that to happen here tonight. I interviewed C.J. Davis, as you saw just a moment ago. Didn't ask her about that particular possibility, but she is very, I don't know, I was impressed with her. I think that if she felt that that would give demonstrators what they needed to hear her and her comments, I could see her doing that. But as Zaria is telling us, right now there isn't much of a police presence at all, and sometimes doing what we do, we find out about these things before the police do.
Absolutely,
So
and I know that Chief Davis had kind of limited her interactions with how she was going to respond to this. So it's now you had that one-on-one. I know that she's met with other outlets now, but I know the public really wants to see her in front of them, just face to face, to give her own account of everything in front of them. But Zaria, I do want to know, you came from where, and then exactly where you stopped again, and then just tell us if you think that they're going to keep moving, or do you know about just this route, or if there's a plan for that?
Yeah, we actually don't know too much about any kind of plan. They were standing in front of Martyrs Park giving their speeches that they needed to give, and then all of a sudden, kind of behind us, they started walking towards the highway, and they made their way onto I-55. Now, if you can see them, they're kind of gathered in a circle here on I-55. There wasn't any clear direction as to where this was going. You know, we're not too far from City Hall, from the MPD headquarters, and a lot of people, before this protest started, they expected that to be where these protesters were heading, but it appears we're just kind of stopped on I-55, backing up quite a bit of traffic. If you're from Memphis, you know that just a brief minute stopped on I-55 can cause a lot of traffic. So this protest taking place here, bringing people to gather on I-55 is a really big deal. It's actually near the Crump Boulevard exit, which is the sign that's right up above us. If you're headed down 55, just make sure that you're being safe, that you're not getting in the way of these protesters, as they have stopped all vehicles from coming into this area, from driving through, from making any kind of movement so that they can make their demands heard. Pepper, Richard.
Zari, another facet to all of this is there's a significant amount of construction going on in that area. That's quite an interesting intersection there, as anyone who's driven over it knows. You head across the bridge on 55 heading into Memphis, and you have a very quick turn to get to continue on the highway, or you go straight and stay on Crump Boulevard. It's confusing to a lot of out-of-towners, too, who've never been to Memphis before, exactly how to negotiate that. But I just want to ask you, as you try to deal with the crowd there, you say it's swelled to about 300 or so protesters right now, is your estimation?
Yeah, I mean, Richard, it really just started with maybe less than 100 people. We were talking with others about how many people we think are here, but as we've made our way down to the highway, these numbers have just grown, and you're right, this is a very high construction zone, and we're seeing lots of tires and lots of debris on the side of the road. They actually just stopped some of the cars from coming when we first got down here. Now we're seeing some law enforcement. If you can see some of this video come down here, there's about 3 or 4 law enforcement that we can see within our eye view. They're not in vehicles right now, so we're not quite sure what they're going to be able to do, especially since, you know, protesting is your First Amendment right, but to block off the traffic way, as you said earlier, this is not allowed. These are not MPD officers. These are security members right now, as of what we can tell, but they aren't disbanding people. They aren't asking people to leave. They're kind of just standing around, it seems as though, to make sure these protests remain peaceful. But again, yeah, they've stopped this traffic. They actually diverted a car another direction on the highway. The car stopped, and they kind of shuffled the car up the highway in the opposite direction. They're continuing to talk and raise up their demands. You know, one of those demands being that that video be made public, and that video is now public. It's about an hour long. It's multiple videos. You do have to log in to see some of those videos because it is just so graphic. So making sure that their demands are heard is kind of one of their top priorities here as they continue to protest on I-55. It looks like they might be starting to move again. So of course we're going to keep following them if they do end up moving, and if they don't, we'll be here. Richard, Pepper.
Zaria, you said that they had started giving speeches at Martyrs Park. Were you able to see who some of these people are that are holding this what do you call those things, those gramophones? But just who are speaking, or who's leading this?
Yeah, I remember one of the people from the vigil last night. Her name is Amber. She is a local activist. Another person who was holding one of those megaphones, her name is Paula Burris. She is also a local activist. She is from Fraser. We've spoken with her before, and again, we've spoken with her about remaining peaceful in these protests, and that is one of the things that they said that they were making sure of. But one thing that Paula Burris told me is that outside of the people who organized this protest, it's really difficult to make sure things stay peaceful. As you can see, they're actually climbing up this hill right now. But I do want to mention that another person holding one of those megaphones was Hunter Dempster. And if you're from Memphis, you know that Hunter Dempster is very well known. Excuse me, we're actually climbing up this hill right now, but Hunter Dempster is actually very well known in the local activist community, also in the skateboarding community. As of the people holding the megaphones, that's all we know of right now. People are actually helping us up this hill. Thank you, sir. We're moving on to another part of the interstate right now as we make our way up. It looks like they're about to shut this highway down too. Pepper and Richard. All righty.
Zaria, please be careful. I know that was a lot going on right there. Wow.
But she made it up the hill, so that's good.
She did.
All right, Zaria, if you could tell us which road or highway are they wanting to close, and are they closing it in addition to I-55, or are they just moving as a group to a new location?
I mean, they're moving as a group, but they have shut down I-55. Ian, my photographer, is here with me, and if you can see, they are in the road on the highway, shutting this down. These cars are at a full stop here on the road. The person on one of those megaphones right now is Paula Burris. This is Paula Burris right here. And this person right here in the white hat, his name is Cassio Montez. He is also a very well-known activist in the Fraser community, working on violence with youth, but right now he's working on violence when it comes to Tyre Nichols and this incident.
So if you're just joining us, as we're seeing from these live pictures from Zaria Oates and her photographer there, we have I-55, fairly major artery in the city that's closed in both directions, and quite possibly Crump Boulevard. And I believe we might have an aerial shot, or a shot that's up above there from one of the TDOT cameras, that's going to give you an idea of just how this looks and the impact that it's having as we talk about, as Zaria said, hundreds of protesters who are now blocking traffic on this major thoroughfare through the city of Memphis, and a lot of drivers who, as Zaria said, are just heading home or heading through the city, have no idea what they've run into.